Mis corazonzones es Gata of Reggaetón Con La Gata. And this week, I'm joined by a very special guest, Shamira Ibrahim, a Brooklyn-based culture writer by way of Harlem, Canada, and East Africa. She's a brilliant critic and storyteller whose work you've probably seen in New York Magazine, Essence, The Atlantic, New York Times, and so many more. Ellos son una matatana. Y'all think y'all be gagged with my tweets? I be gagged with hers. Shamira explores identity, cultural production, and technology through a race-critical code framework, and she's currently a regional editor at Africa is a Country, la que saben. In this episode, we dive into her journey as a writer, the impact of AI on music, and the struggles independent artists face when pushing for visibility. Oh, we go there. We talk about the importance of authenticity in art, the evolution of both hip-hop and reggaeton. Se supone que what I do in Latin, there are a lot of parallels in our work with what she does in Anglo. In other words, everything English language, but particularly hip-hop. And the complicated nature of parasocial relationships between artists and fans. Whew, because it's getting weird in here. And of course, we close with some powerful reflections on the future of music and why culture and exchange is everything. Este episodio le da todo. So sit back, relax, dale play, and let's get into it with Shamira aquí en Reggaetón Con La Gata. Dime, gente linda, es Gata de Ahita Favorita. This is Reggaetón Con La Gata. I am super excited because I'm here with someone that I deeply admire. Another black girl or whatever. Shamira, thank you so much for being here. How you doing, girl?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you so much for the invitation. Mutual respect here.
Girl, of course. I can't wait to get into it. Just for the record, y'all can't see me because this is an audio podcast, but whenever she tweets, I'd be like, like, this is me. Like,
if it makes you feel any better, whenever I tweet, I get an email that's like, this is supposed to be an essay. Why are you tweeting?
Yeah, girl. Okay, talk about it. Because seriously, with me, I had to stop tweeting because I'm like, I keep giving Latin music leads, bro. I can't tweet because all of a sudden I see articles with the headlines of my tweets. And I'm like, yo, I'm not getting paid for this. I got to chill. Like, it's hard being an authentic culture shifter because exactly shit. But like.
Exactly. Yeah. The way that I think of it is, I come up with 10 ideas an hour. So if you take 2, you got it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got 8 more in the clip.
I literally was telling my intern, I'm like, I hate me because I have an idea and I buy a domain. Or I have an idea. Girl, you don't know how many, GoDaddy.com, you're getting free promo right now. But like, I have an idea and it's like $2.99 domain. Fuck. And like, it's over. It's done. So felt. Oh my God.
Right.
Oh my God, I love the note that we started on. And I want to get right back into it. Mi amor, in your own words, because there's what people see online, there's what I think I know, and then there's what actually is. I would love to hear in your own words, your story. Who is Shamira? Like, I want to hear your story.
Right. So I am first and foremost a New Yorker. You know, I have to start with that. I grew up in Uptown, NYC, and that is still very much home to me, although I live in Brooklyn. Don't tell anybody. But that's a whole other story. But, you know, I grew up in the city as an East African from a Francophone, French-speaking background. And a lot of what I grew up experiencing is trying to find different ways to connect to different communities because New York is such a melting pot of different ethnicities. But not many people from a small East African archipelago in the Swahili coast. You know what I'm saying? So much of my life in this city is trying to build bridges and trying to figure out, you know, like, okay, this is how I understand my Blackness. What does that mean to you? How do we connect? What do we have in common? What do we have differently? And that helped inform everything I do as a writer. So much of my writing is about Black life and the different ways we exist in it, right? You know, trying to find different connections, different bridges. You know, I know it's corny to say that like we're more similar than we are different, but like I really do feel that in a lot of different ways, you know, and it has been a pleasure to be able to do that. One, as just a general loudmouth and curious person who likes to know, you know, new things about different cultures, but also as a writer who I like to start as a person who's curious and go from there as an example to discover new things. So that's the gist of, I guess, my background. You know, like I said, I grew up uptown, I grew up in Sugar Hill, you know, went to Wrong Science for those who care about high school in New York, right? You know, and I love talking about the things that make this city click, because as someone who grew up in the outer boroughs, you know, a lot of people don't understand the things that actually matter to a lot of local New Yorkers. And I do try to acknowledge that part in the stories that I tell.
Word up, word up. And she said Sugar Hill, just so that y'all who are listening are like, nah, she's a real New Yorker. And I know because I was a transplant for a lot of years and I own it. But New York is like the
Right.
best city on the planet. So like, word up, word up. No, girl, thank you. And immediately, just off the cuff, I have another question because girl, I learned so much from you. And like the love here is honestly so mutual. Like I learned so much from you. You be tweeting and I'd be like, yes, like felt. And so, you know, everyone they learn in different ways. What was your process? Did you go to school? Are you classic? Well, I hate that I'm classically trained, but like how did you like come into your awakening and your training? What was that like for you?
So I was not classically trained as a writer or a journalist in that way, right? You know, like many people with ADHD, I went through a lot of different career pivots before I figured out like what made the most sense for me, right? So like coming up, middle school, high school, I thought I was going to be a translator. In my head, I swore I had an aptitude for languages. When I tell you I did not, what it really was I grew up in a French-speaking household, and then I grew up around a lot of Dominicans and Puerto Ricans, and so I was able to pick up Spanish really quickly. I'm like, oh my God, I got this. And I forget, oh yeah, French and Spanish are just like really related, you know what I mean? So I had a foundation. I tried to learn Mandarin, girl. That was a wrap, and that it clipped real quick. Like, shout out to Cutie Hunter, because they were very gracious to me to let me pass that class. You know, I did that. I thought I was going to work in international policy and like save the world and, you know, go around and like do international political economy type stuff. That's what I actually studied in undergrad. I studied politics and economics and traveled abroad and tried to figure out, you know, how to, in short, alleviate poverty in the global South, right? You know, and I went to DC after that, and like the money was not there. And like I'm the eldest in an immigrant household that is very working class. Actually, I should be explicit. I grew up poor, right? Like just to be explicit about it, right? Being on subsistence like funds until I could go to grad school was just not feasible for me. And that's how I ended up pivoting into consulting. And I did consulting in the tech world for a very long time. But then I was just in this corporate space for like way too long. And I didn't really have an outlet to talk about the things that mattered to me. And so I started blogging. I started contributing to blogs, doing long comments, realizing I'm writing an essay in people's comment sections, you know, my friends being like, you should write this. And so I ended up getting a byline for Ebony. And, you know, then I ended up getting a byline at a lot of like big, like culture, local blogs at the time, like Very Smart Brothers and all those kind of blogs that were really popular at the time. And that was it. 15 years later, I'm still writing and now I'm doing it full time. Like that's the short version of how I even got here, right? And then I realized like I didn't just want to react to like public things that were happening on social media. I wanted to be able to sit and talk more meaningfully about like the connections we have, the way stories come about, the way we live our lives. And I was very thankful to be able to get opportunities to do that, to really be able to be like, I want to talk about Black immigration, but like in a real way and not just like acknowledging it as a bullet point. And I found editors that were willing to work with me. I've been really lucky in that the majority of my editors have not only been Black, but Black women. And they've been very supportive of my journey in trying to be like a more established writer.
I love that for you. As you're speaking, I'm like, like which part do I hold on to? But I'm holding on to all of it. And in the sense that like in transparency. So for those who are listening, she works more so like in the US general, like Anglo market. For y'all who are listening, I of course work more so in the Latin market. And I'm over here like, bro, like talking about Blackness in Latin is we don't got time to get into how hard that is, but I super love that you had supporting editors. Shout out to the ones that I have had, because you know they've respected me and they have taken chances on me. At the same time, I know that I've written a lot of things that like I remember writing an op-ed that completely changed the trajectory of my life, and it was because I was talking about Black Lives Matter and artists' lack of commentary on it, and like. I remember getting approached by a lot of Black Latinas and being like, yo, I pitched that years ago. And they were like, racism is so niche. And I'm like, oh, here we go. So like, anyway, like I do want people to like hear this, because it's like, oh, the media landscape is shifting so much on both sides at this point. And so that's exactly where I'm going, in the sense of, girl, I'm dying to know. Like, what has that been like for you in the sense of like witnessing this shift? We're in a time right now, we have a certain president who is promoting a certain culture, and there's a lot of silencing going on, right? And we're both very outspoken women. What have you been witnessing? What have you been hold on to? What has been pissing you off? I want to hear it.
Yeah, I think the big thing that's been pissing me off is the sense of safety. So being quite honest, I grew up undocumented for most of my life, right? I was an undocumented Muslim immigrant in New York during 9/11 type shit, right? And when I speak to like my colleagues and peers, and they feel less safe now than we did in like 2002, 2003, 2004, just because of the level of everybody monitoring everybody, like there's a level of lack of security that I feel like we all have. I have my green card and I travel now, and I still feel a little bit anxious. Like I'm doing all the steps, deleting the social media, archiving everything, whatever. But as someone, like you said, who generally feels comfortable being outspoken about the things that I want to say or the things I believe or the information that I feel like people don't have, it feels like I'm being a little bit more intentional about how I approach what I say and how I say it. Like if I'm going to say something provocative, it has to be backed up so that when you do try me, I can list out A, B, C, D about how I know I got this right. Like I have to be really a little bit more thoughtful about the off the cuff things that I have to say these days.
Word up. And you're thinking this way because you're a journalist. You know what I mean? You're thinking this way because you have respect for integrity, for ethics, you know what I mean? And for the truth. And I think like what's most like, what has pissed me off if I was to answer that same thing is like, girl, I know I sound like a broken record, but like the shift of Twitter has completely
crazy.
Like, oh my God.
I mean, I locked my Twitter account down for that reason, like I had to lock it down. I felt like I was getting caught in these rage bait cycles about talking about things that I want to talk about. Like I'm talking about nuances of African immigration as someone who grew up going to braiding shops and grew up, my mom was a nanny. She was a housekeeper. She did all these things. So I'm talking from personal perspective and getting dogpiled by like racist accounts, like, trying to stir up xenophobia, right? Talking about, of all things, Dominicans, right? On social media, as someone who grew up around plenty, and like getting caught up in like, FBA conversations that I find unproductive, right? Like I'm not even trying to, delegitimize how people feel about, ethnic conversations, right? But it's more so like, I don't find this a productive way to talk about the topic at hand, right? And I find that I wasn't able to have real conversations anymore. Like you could tell that people were not looking for dialogues. And that's assuming you're even talking to a real person in the first place, right? Because we saw the report is 75 bots out there now, or 75% bots out there now, right? And so I was like, I still want to say what I have to say, but I want this to be more of a running journal than like something that everyone can co-opt or whatever. So I locked it down, which like when you already have a few thousand followers, it's still like, you're kind of putting like a glass closet door or whatever, but it still gave me like a little bit of safety of like, I can't get piled on into these conversations because, it is a distraction. It doesn't allow you to think about the things you want to think about, talk about what you want to talk about, because all of a sudden you're arguing with a nobody who may not even be a real person.
Heavy on a nobody, because I mean that's literally, girl, I remember everything in 8K. Like I closed my eyes and I just remember every single thing that Musk and his stupid ass team did. The first thing they did was take away the blue check marks from journalists to discredit them, and then monetize that, which he could say that's a business decision, whatever. But what was actually going on was like the incels were pissed that like they kept getting checked, so that comes from that, and like just like wanting to promote misinformation, which I mean, whatever, we can get it all day. But to pivot a little bit, one thing I really admire from you, and like, you're like so like, for lack of a better term, just so well-rounded. You talk about everything. I feel like I scroll and I'm like, I see everything on your timeline. Like, I love it. But especially music. Your takes on music be taking me out sometimes. And so, what's your take on AI? I've been kind of like, just like,
firmly against it
on a lot.
Yeah.
That's going on.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
So like, I should give the context. Like I said, before I was a writer, I was in tech consulting, right? So I've been around a lot of these big trends before they became mainstream. So I actually worked a little bit in the AI space. At the time, it was called big data and data analytics and data insights, right? And like the whole effort was for these big corporations at the enterprise level to be able to collect data and marketing insights about anybody, segment it, and like figure out ways to generate revenue, right? So it was mostly for sales teams, then it was for marketing teams. And the thing is that like, there's a cap on like how much you can do that and still be profitable, right? And so then what happens is they pass that off to the consumer. So like knowing how shoddy the actual systems are, right? And how non-viable they were on a corporate level, and that now they're just trying to use it and like displace it and force us to use it, right? Because as someone who's a skeptic, I have to open Microsoft Word and force Copilot to not, turn on, right? Or I go on a Google search and I have to turn off AI, right? So they're like forcing us into compliance. But I think the thing about it is what makes music magical is the imperfections. And you can't create an imperfection with AI. You can't hear the lick of a song where somebody's voice cracks in an AI record, right? You know what I mean? You can't hear a live recording where maybe that person drummed the wrong solo sequence, but it hits so differently, right? If you're not actually played with a live jam band, right?
Yes.
Like I had the, distinct privilege of being able to see Bad Bunny do the NPR Tiny Desk in person, right? And I remember hearing him rehearse in the green room, just like practicing the vocals, right? And like he's trying it 3 different ways, right? He's trying it 3 to 4 different ways to see what'll work best for the acoustics. And it's like, you don't get to know that distinction of like, oh, I'm gonna be in this new room. How am I gonna project this? How am I gonna sing this? If you're processing it through a computer. I think a lot of people assume that any technology means that we should be comfortable with AI. And especially with like genres like hip hop and house and techno that are inherently like rooted in technology, like hip hop started from, the turntables. There's a sense of like, well, we always use technology, so why wouldn't we continue? And it's like, we could always innovate, right? There's no problem with continuing to innovate. The big issue is that this doesn't actually allow you to think. And there's labor in practicing to find perfect, right? And you use the tools to facilitate that. But if you use it to create for you, that process, the process where you sit down and think through what makes something important or valuable or memorable, you lose all of that because you're just giving that power over to a tool.
So Timbaland over here trying to create an artist is a no in your book?
No, absolutely not. And like the thing that makes me sad is that it's such a blatant money grab, right? And it's like, do you need more? You're Timbaland. You've made so many hit records. How much more money could you possibly need?
That part, and also I was completely caught off guard. So for those who are listening, of course I'm a reggaeton nerd. Shout out to DJ Blast. I'm like obsessed with him. If you know me and you know my story, my name is Gata because of Guatauba, which he's produced. I am a huge Blast fan, and Blast is a huge Timbaland fan. Like Blast has told me that like he appreciated his layering. He's like, oh, he'll lay down the bass and then he'll lay down the percussion, and then he always adds something quirky. And like I take that formula and I use that in reggaeton. We have the perreo that we have today because of artists like Timbaland and hip hop. So for Timbaland to be this extraordinary and then want to cave in like that is like, my guy, exactly. How much more money do you need? What happened? Like, why do you need like this right now? Why are you advocating for this as if you don't make superstars? What's going on? You need an A&R? Timbaland, if you need an A&R, I'm available. Like, I got you, dog. But then past that, it's like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like it's even disrespectful to him and who he is. So it's like, I don't get it. You know what I mean?
Like to your friend's point about those quirky elements, right? Like I think about, was it More Than a Woman where he has a baby crying as like a sample, right?
Yes.
You don't get to do that in an AI produced beat, right? Like you're not going to think, oh my God, I have a baby screams and I'm going to use that, right? Or I'm going to use the sound of a chair squeaking, right? The way that they use on Some Cut, which has now been used everywhere, right? Yeah. These things don't get to be part of how you chop things, right? And I think that like sometimes we want those imperfections. Like I think about, for example, Jadakiss and just like the locks for We Go Make It, right? And like if you listen to how the sample is cut, it's actually not perfect. Like it doesn't fall squarely on the floor the way it's cut. It's like a little off, right? But that's what makes it amazing to listen to, right? It doesn't perfectly fit into the bar, the way that like the violin sample works, right? And if you do that in AI, it does fit in perfectly, of course, because why would they try to make it crooked, right? And I think like it's not even just the fact that the songs all sound like they're made for reality television background music, which like I do feel that way. Like I hear the Love Island soundtrack playing.
Love
You
Island.
hear it.
I'm screaming.
Like I hear it, but even beyond that, it's just like it's not even interesting. It can't be interesting because the things that are interesting are the things that you get to play around with, and you're not playing around with anything.
Word up, girl. And also, hold on, pause, rewind, because you said something, and I'm just like, well, how many people get to experience that? You got to experience Bad Bunny at NPR Tiny.
Oh,
pause, go back. Like, how many people could say they did that? And there was only a certain amount of people in the room.
Oh, I took all the photos, girl. I got as close as I could without being a weirdo about it. You know what I'm saying? I will say that all of NPR's Puerto Rican contingent was in full flow. I mean, if you saw the Tiny Desk, you know that it was a very participatory experience, right? Like, I will say that, like, at the outset, he was like, "Are you coming to watch things in Spanish?" Everyone encouraged him to do the whole thing in Spanish. It was like, "This is your space to be welcome." Obviously, the records were amazing, but it also was just amazing to see someone like Bad Bunny who has over the years. I've known him, probably the first record of his I ever heard clearly was Creepy Kush. That was the first record of his that I knew quite well, right? Okay. And I remember my friend Jose being like, "You have to listen to this guy, Bad Bunny. A couple years ago, he was just bagging groceries in Puerto Rico, and now he's out here, doing the whole thing." And seeing how he has gone from that, like, and really defined the musica urbano scene, right? And turning that into what he's doing for Puerto Rico right now. And at this moment, doing it on his own terms. Like, it doesn't matter if you're Latino or not. You can't do anything but stand, right? You know what I mean? Like, in the sense of like, it's so compelling to watch him try to figure out ways with his stardom to bring it back to Puerto Rico. I think that's what a lot of people hope that their favorite international artists can do. And there's obviously things that Bad Bunny can work on being more accountable for, be more dynamic about, be more earnest about. But I think that seeing that story and seeing him talk about it in person is that definitely took me away, right? Like, you don't have many artists that like stand on their square about what they care about in 2025 because of the reasons you're talking about, with the social media backlash, with the politics of it all. And so it feels refreshing when you see a megastar be like, "No, you have to come to me,"
Mis corazones. I hate to do it to you, pero es necesario. We'll be right back right after these messages. Así que no se muevan. Freeze. We're going to continue on this tip because quite literally, it's why I had to pivot this damn podcast. Because I was like, these artists are not deep, bro. They're not deep.
No.
And I'm tired of being the only deep person on the call. And I'm just like, I can't do this. I can't do... Shout out to iHeart. I love you so much. But like, this podcast is weekly. And so I'm like, I cannot have 52 weeks of myself inspired by, no, I can't do this, bro. Like, Trump is over here talking with Iran and I can't do this. I can't do this. There's too much going on in the world. There's too much at stake. So I want to go there with you. I'm so glad that you went there because, girl, I would love your take on... Everyone is like, Gata, I'm glad you did this pivot because we're not supposed to look to these artists for like their hot takes. These artists are... Some people have gone as far to say these artists are dumb. I'm like, I won't go that far, but like they're not deep. And so, but this is a change. So I consider myself an artist. I went to art school. I am I need to put more of my music out there. But most importantly, like, I critique the world. I have an opinion.
Right.
And like, more importantly, I create. You're an artist if you create. Doesn't matter what your medium.
Absolutely.
You're an artist. You create. So like, with that said, what's your take on this? Because I've been really sad to like have so many people agree with me on the sense of like, yeah, we shouldn't look for our recording artists to be heroes. I agree. But also, who are our heroes today? Like, what does that look like when these platforms, in regards to like these mega sized platforms being given to people who are that deep, they're just not in abundance, like that's kind of what my contention is with it. Like, how many Bad Bunnies do we really have? Like,
right.
Really? You know what I mean? Not much. So like, so who do we turn to? And what does that say about us that we're looking to turn to someone? What's your take on this?
Yeah. So I have a couple of takes, right? The first one is, I think yes, it's true that celebrity is not something we should rely on, right? In general, right? Like I have a friend who jokes that like a lot of like celebrity interviewing and celebrity profiles is trying to find people who are not that deep and try to make them as interesting as possible, right? And there's something to that, right? Where like, you're trying to find these deep connections and then you interview someone, they're like, no, I just really felt like talking about that today. And you're like, oh, well, I guess, you know what I mean? So there's a little bit of that, right? But also like art is political. All art is political. And I fully believe that. And I think a lot of people get caught up in the idea of like art being political, as in like you have to express a political affiliation. But it's like the choices you make indicate your value system, right? So if now that Trump and the administration is doing everything and all of a sudden you can't speak on racism, even though you were doing it 3 years ago in a different song, you have made a constructive decision that your revenue matters more than talking about the topics you used to talk about, right? If you are all of a sudden adjusting the material of your music, that is a political choice, even if you don't want to call it that, right? Like Bad Bunny's album, for example, yeah, it was about Puerto Rico and protecting Puerto Rico, but he also extended that to something material, right? Saying, okay, I'm going to make this tour a Puerto Rican tour. I'm going to actually separate myself from the American touring industry, right? And that matters for an artist on his level, right? I think the bare minimum, though, that we can do, and this is the part that really frustrates me, is you can't have an artist and like celebrate them from their art and then get upset when people hold them accountable to what they claim to be, right? No one is telling all of these artists, you have to claim activism, you have to claim feminism, you have to claim Pan-Africanism, whatever the case may be, right? But if you are ascribing that to yourself, if you are harnessing those themes in your music, it is fair to ask, how do you feel about this if you're going to use it for profit, right? And that's something that megastars on multiple levels get confronted on, right? I think about Burna Boy a lot, someone who, people will say, oh, he does a lot of political messaging in his music. He talks a lot about Nigeria and colonialism, but gets critiqued a lot for when massive events happen in Nigeria, the country itself, or within the diaspora, is usually a little bit delayed in holding the political system to task because he's not performing in that circumstance. You're actually a part of the populace, right? And so when you think about like what your obligation is, it's like, I think most of us are just trying to meet people where they are, right? If you put a big sign behind it that says feminist, I'm allowed to ask you if you're a feminist, right? If you decide, oh, I did this because I'm a Pan-Africanist, I'm allowed to ask what Pan-Africanism means to you, but beyond like, wanting to go to Ghana in December, right? I'm allowed to ask these things. And that doesn't mean that I don't find musical value in the art, right? But it does mean that I find enough value that I'm respecting your word and I'm asking you what those words mean. And I think people are so afraid to do that because we're now at a point where people think that their interests have to match their values, right? And so if you say something is a little bit, insufficient or inadequate, that's somehow saying that they're inadequate and they have bad political taste, right? And it's like, no, I exist with lots of contradictions. I watch reality television and talk about it all the time, right? Who am I? To be like, oh, what you consume is a reflection of who you are, right? But it's like, I want to have conversations about what we consume. And I think people get very nervous about that in a way that they shouldn't. Like, I'm by no means going to be the one to tell you to stop listening to XYZ.
Word up. Quite literally and verbatim is quite literally why I have critiqued Bad Bunny, but people don't get that. And you said this so beautifully, and I'm not going to add to that. Just literally, you guys hear what she said twice. Rewind it, play it, like loop it, please, because quite literally it's on point. And I have said, just to add, like, I have always said, like, Ayo, Balvin, you have I don't want to hear you talk about race. I don't want to do it. But you know what you can do? You could pass the mic. You could pass the mic. It don't gotta be you. It don't gotta be you. I think it's like part of this is that you can use your power for good in other ways. I think Bad Bunny does that. I think he does that.
Right.
I give credit to him for that. Like, he has a good Bunny foundation. He puts on other artists who are saying things. He's not in rango. Maybe he doesn't have the range, or maybe he doesn't, but instead of sitting and dwiddling his thumbs, he's passing it over to someone else. So good for him, Can be more done? Always. Does that mean like we need to pressure him as if he's like the worst thing ever? No, and that's kind of where I'm going next. These parasocial relationships. They're getting weird. I am not an A-lister at all. Maybe one day, but even I have had like weird run-ins of parasocial relationships. I've had a stalker. I had 3 stalkers.
Oh my gosh.
One of them, girl, found my ex-boyfriend, added him, tried to instigate a threesome with him. Like, I am not kidding. Like,
so wild.
She was acting as if she was Afro-Latina. She wasn't. She just learned Spanish and like had a Puerto Rican best friend. She was African American. Like, it was
I went through a stretch where I was Dominican on the weekends, but like, let's be serious.
Like, at least like you're you. She was blown, assuming Puerto
Rican
hand, to try to get into like spaces. She get into editorial like where I was. It was very creepy. It was very creepy. She like wanted my life. Anyway, all of that to say, parasocial relationships get fucking weird, bro. Where like to the point where people like want to like extract certain things from people. And I think you touched on it a little bit. I just, having mentioned this, what do you want people to take away? If there's anything that you need people to know regarding parasocial relationships, what would that be coming from you?
The short version is you don't know these people. Like, you really don't know these people, right? Like you said, I've had situations where people made a lot of assumptions about me, my life, what I go through. After a certain point, I really try not to share my personal life publicly in a very deep way, right? Like talking about my family or whatever. I thought it wasn't necessarily safe, for one, right? And for two, they didn't ask to be talked about constantly. So I don't want to extract their lives just for consumption purposes, right? But like, because of that, I've had people make a lot of assumptions about my lifestyle, who I am, what I have to offer, what I'm looking for, the income I make, whatever, right? People who assume I'm either dirt broke or swimming in like Twitter verified cash. I don't really know for real, right? And it's like, people will fill in the blanks to, whatever their perspective is of you to make them feel comfortable with that perspective, right? So it's, oh, Shamira's always been a clout chaser. And you're like, I mean, okay, if you say so. Like, I don't even care enough to, rebut that. If that's how you feel, that's how you feel, right? Or Shamira just really wants to get this pitch placed. That's why she's talking so much about this. And I'm like, I wish that was the case. I just unfortunately run my mouth too much, right? I think
no, girl, take up all the space.
One thing I found out is, like meeting a lot of these celebrities, having the good fortune to interview them. Some of them are great. Some of them are terrible. Some of them are just fine. It really depends. Your mileage will vary. It's especially depending on how what you value. Like, I really pay attention to if celebrities speak to their team well, right? Are they polite? Do they make a point to acknowledge them? Do they make a point to thank them for the work that they're doing, right? Or do they treat them like just people on staff who are there to do labor for them, right? And like, a lot of I've interviewed people who I'm like, oh man, like, if people only knew how annoying or insulting they were, condescending they were, right? But I think in the grand scheme of things, like, even for like artists that I really love, I'm like, I love you because you gave me something. You gave me a piece of music, right? I don't know you as a person. I don't spend time with you. We're not in a group chat together, right? You know what I mean? And I don't know you in that capacity to defend you or speak in favor of you or against you in any sort of way, right? And I feel like, especially with younger people, there's such an impulse to run and be like, oh, this must be this, or that, right? And I found it in the ways that people will attack your own logic and talk about other things, right? Like, I have been, I've been critical of rappers that I like. Like, for example, I like Meg Thee Stallion. I've been openly critical of her. People are like, oh, but you were just on Meg Thee Stallion's, jock, like last year. Like, oh, why'd you switch it up now? And it's like, I didn't switch it up anything. I'm still listening to her. I just have critiques. And I think I'm allowed to have critiques, And I wish more people would be open to that, because I think it's way more normal to be like, I rock with this thing and I don't rock with this thing, than to actually assume that you love every single thing a person does. I don't even love every single thing I do, much less somebody else, right? So you don't need to be a one-man army for these people.
Yeah. And yeah, what you're getting into is duality. And like, I proved this stuff. I have nothing to add. Like, quite literally, yeah, more than one thing can be true at the same time, mi gente. If you're going to take away anything, take away that.
Exactly.
Oh my God. So, on the note of, you had mentioned Meg, so I'm going to go there. You had tweeted because someone had wrote, can I be honest about Meg? I don't think she should sign to a label, and wanting her to do so is a bad business decision. Her being in charge of her own music deals and ventures is because she's independent. She's playing a long game, and the label will cut it short. And then you wrote, her being her own boss is hampering her creatively. There's upside and downsides to everything. But if she wants a chance at making an album that shows her impressive ceiling as an artist, she clearly needs a team to help guide her there. And that's not the worst thing. She can keep buying up Popeye's franchise. I hate you. Popeye's franchises, but I personally would prefer good music that continues in the vein of Bigger in Texas, or the 3-track run at the opening of Traumazine, where she was rapping her ass off. NDA into Ungrateful is such an underrated 1-2 punch. I approve this message. I agree. You know, like, I feel like nobody could like operate alone, you know, and the bigger you are, I really hate to say it, more money, more problems. That's a real thing. But also creatively, you know, and I never really thought about it till I saw your tweet. If you're Meg the Stallion and you're expected to deliver at a certain caliber, and so that's going to require a lot more people. The better the project, the next project going to be even more expensive. The next is going to be even more expensive. And so that makes things harder. And so I think she needed the Popeye, sis. Like the Popeye like help her with the music. Like she needs that cash cow because you know, like when you're independent, the money gotta come from somewhere and it gotta come a little faster. So I'm laughing at that because I feel you. Like I agree. I'm laughing and being silly. But like, let's talk about this in the sense of like, yeah, these artists really do need help. Like being independent. Let's just talk about the sense of like being independent. Like, what is your overall consensus on that? Because big or small, it's just proven to be damn well impossible. But some people, of course, are making it work. Some better than others. Some people have their moments. But overall, in my opinion, it's affecting artistry. Like we don't have shit like we had it back in the day. Like it's so different. What's your take on this?
Yeah, you know, I think people really sensationalize the fantasy of being your own boss, right? It's like, oh, nobody will tell me anything. I don't have to be accountable to anybody. I run my own thing. As someone who's a full-time freelancer, if someone could take the administrative stuff off my plate so I could focus on the writing, that would be the ideal situation. So much of my life is chasing down invoices, chasing down checks, making sure I have all my accounting ready, you know, doing all this administrative stuff, sending all these emails that I don't care for because it takes away from the time I have to think and to write. I can't really sit and think and write about the interesting things I want to talk about if I'm so focused on how I'm going to pay my rent next month, right? You know? And so I spend a lot of time doing things to make sure I can pay my rent next month because I'm not trying to give up a rent stabilized apartment in New York, right? Like I'm trying to hold on to this as long as I can. You know what I'm saying? And so like, when you think about that for any artist, like that becomes a reality, you know? So Meg is the boss of her own industry and she is independent. As you and I both know, being independent does not make money. I mean, music in general does not make money like that. Like, you know, 1,000 streams gets you $1 on Spotify, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's no money for real, right? You see 1 billion streams, that person's maybe getting $1,000 for 1 billion streams. It is not profitable right now to be a recording artist, right? And so it makes sense then, if you're independent, to do all these sponsorships, to bring in the millions that you can spend. The problem comes that when you're the person holding so many different pots, right? You can't spend as much time on the creative because you are the person doing the endorsements, pitching the brand deals, going to meetings, designing, you know, clothing lines, making sure that your brand is on things, producing TV shows, right? All the stuff that keeps the money going in, but it makes music, the actual creative stuff, a little bit on the back burner. That's the only way that it works, right? And the other part of that is that when you are the boss, even if you do have a team, because like Meg does have a team right now, I don't want to pretend she doesn't, right? But you're the boss. And so you're the one signing everybody's check. How many people are going to be willing to say, oh, yeah, no, I think you should switch that beat? If you're the one paying their bills, it's not even whether or not you're a good or bad person. That's just how power balances work, right? You know? And if you have an overseer, I don't like that word, okay? If you have someone who's...
I'm gonna lie, I paused. I was like, I beg your pardon. Hold on.
I definitely was like, no, wait, that's not what I'm looking for.
A manager.
Yes.
Hold on.
This is what happens when you talk fast. I mean, you think faster than you talk. All of a sudden, I'm just like...
all the damn time and the words be seeping through and like, yo, I'm screaming. That's so funny. Chill. Okay.
Okay. But if you have a manager or just someone else to be accountable to who is not relying on you for a check, they could be the ones to be like, listen, you know, this song sounds cool, but you need a better hook. You need something that makes it work. You need a better beat. You need to switch this out for that, right? And I do think, and it's not just Meg, I do think a lot of these independent artists are struggling with how to make revenue, and that comes at the cost of their music. So like another example is like a lot of the independent artists like Larry June and all of them in the Midwest that are putting out albums once a month or like once every 3 months, right? They're trying to keep the output out so they can tour on music. And like now because of like demand of streaming, they know that they have to constantly be on top of everybody's, like memory, right? So they're constantly putting out something new. Boldy James will have a new collaboration with Alchemist out maybe next month. He had one a couple of months ago, right? Freddie Gibbs is constantly putting out albums. And you get why it's happening. And some of them, to their credit, are true geniuses and are rapping at elite levels despite the output. But there's a level of like, you could make a classic album. You could take your last 5 albums, put them into one album. That'd be the album of the year, right? And instead, we're getting like small gems in these bigger albums that are filled with things that you're like, oh, you're trying to make this fit a playlist algorithm. That's why you're keeping this under 2 minutes. Oh, you have this sample because you hope it's going to be on TikTok, right? And I like good art. So I just want better for all my favorite artists.
Again, girl, it's like, it's just so refreshing to talk with someone who gets it. Cause like,
it's hard. And like, I empathize, right? Like, you have to pay the bills, and at a certain level of celebrity, right? You got to keep the money revenue rolling in. And when you pay out your agent and your manager, all these other things, then that's the pot you work with. But like I said, there's upsides and downsides to everything, right? There's a reason why a lot of writers don't like being freelancers, want to be on staff. It's not because they don't want to make as much money as possible, but because you decide that like the comfort and benefits that come with being at a publication ease like your ability to actually write creatively, right? And similarly, I don't think a label is for everybody, right? But for some people, it would be helpful to be there for a stretch of time, if for no other reason than to get a sense of structure about how they think things would run for themselves. Like, I don't think you get the Beyonce of now without her having like a lot of handholding from Matthew Knowles and that management team. And now she understands what she needs an operation to look like, and she can take that and run, right? So I think there's a lot of different ways to do it. But unfortunately now, everything has been devalued. Art has been excessively devalued. And so the money grabs are the way that people are going. And it's not like I don't get it. Girl, I got paychecks to, I need to pay these bills. But I really wish that people cared more about making the music stronger.
Yes. And you know where my brain went after? I was like, I'm echoing that. And in part, I blame the fans. I blame the fans. Like this is kind of like where I've been, and not completely, just for those who are about to take that sound bite and like cut me up. Like not completely. Like there's blame to be put on various sides here. But on the sides of the fans, like I wish people would give artists more grace. Look at how people are cutting up Normani, right? And like how she actually had I believe a sick parent. And it's like,
right.
Well, you have real life shit going on in their real lives.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, do we want, A quality things like from our artists? Like, let's give them some grace. Granted, Rihanna, she's taking a while, and I think we're gonna get I think R9 is the ninth kid. You know what I mean? At this point.
Listen, I made my peace with Rihanna's retirement. I don't know if everybody else has, but I'm holding on.
I'm just like, I feel her. Like as a 30-something-year-old woman now myself, 31. It's like I feel her. If I'm gonna pop one, I'm gonna pop them all, and then we gonna fix this up, and then we gonna go on. You feel me? So like, I feel her. Let her pop off, and once the kids are at an age where, speaking as someone, I'm purely projecting. I'm not a mom, but I wouldn't get back into work until my kids could talk to me and tell me what the fuck is going on. Because until then, yes, I want to see you. So like until then, like just let her cook, literally.
Right. And she's earned the hiatus. You dropped 7 albums in 7 years. You get to take a break, And
I'm excited because like when she comes back, I'm fully in maybe I'm delusional. I don't know, maybe I am. But like when she comes back, she's gonna be in her 40s, and it's gonna be like a whole new revolution because she's gonna be older. And then now we're gonna have this whole conversation about ageism, and it's gonna be amazing. That's another thing that's like really straining us too, because instead of like giving flowers and grace to people who have the age and like the experience, we're also like in this energy where like we're always looking for the hot young thing. I'm like, sometimes hot young thing doesn't have shit to say or to give us. You know what I mean? And like I don't know, sometimes we don't like appreciate people who been around the block. Like, I don't know. I
Right.
never killed nobody. I don't know. So like,
Listen, I agree 100%. I think about how the Clips like handled their entire, rollout and marketing for the last year, like to think about holding an album for a year, going to the press, like coming back after a 15-year hiatus, taking the
oh, yeah.
opportunity to be like, we're telling our story on our terms for our audience, meet us where we are, And they didn't try to compromise what they sound like. They didn't try to compromise like the things that they communicated. They said, this is what we rap about, right? We're going to stick true to our sound. We're not going to try to chase the current trends. And if you like it, great. We'll give you a full production. If you don't, then go seek something else. And they reap the benefits of sticking true to themselves. And I really hope that inspires other legacy acts, especially in hip hop, which like a lot of people feel like is a young man's sport, to be able to be like, yes, I can be 45 and still rap and still find a market and still tour if that's what you want to do, right? You don't have to think, oh my God, I hit 30, it's over, right? I really hope less and less people think that, hip hop was like a child's, game when it was kids and teenagers learning music at the park. Now it's 50 years old. You get to have middle-aged people.
I'm so sorry. I'm laughing because as you're saying this, I'm thinking about Mary J. Blige.
Okay, well, I don't think Mary wants the tour, unfortunately.
Tour no more, bro. I really want to know what's going on because my
listen,
tired. She's in these boots.
I love Mary down, but I am praying the Legends balance after this tour because she is clearly over it. And I hate that her ex-husband seems to have kept her in this financial bind because like, there's nothing more uncomfortable than really realizing that your favorite artist does not want to be there.
Yo, I be seeing her on these step and repeats, and I'm like, I just want to give her hugs.
Like, someone just needs to give her a boot line and an earring line so she can make some passive income for real.
Mary, we love you, Mary. Respectfully, like, girl, we see you, and we see it. Like, high key, I don't know. I want more for Black women, starting with Mary. Like, I'm gonna pivot. Okay. So a lot of your work, we got into hip hop, so we're kind of in this question already, but a lot of your work covers hip hop. And I of course covered reggaeton. And you grew up around Dominicans and Puerto Ricans, and like you're Latina, you're Latina by extension. Like you're French francophone, like she's Haitian.
Yeah.
Like, she's Haitian.
Right, exactly.
Like whatever. And so, if you had a hot take comparing and contrasting reggaeton from hip hop, considering what's going on right now, what would it be?
A hot take. Oof. I think my hot take is more so around the current diaspora conversation about who owns reggaeton, right? I think my hot take is that hip hop, like reggaeton, is not something that is necessarily owned by anybody, right? Like I think it's owned in the sense that there's originators, there's influencers, right? But a lot of Black cultural production, the history of it is that we exchange with each other and then we build off those exchanges and we build something new. And then the next generation comes and builds something new. And we all kind of build a way to communicate with each other. James Brown went to, West Africa to play blues music with like Malian guitarists, right? You see all this all the time. And I think, both reggaeton and hip hop are in a space of people feeling threatened by it expanding and it, being co-opted by other spaces, right? Reggaeton obviously has that current lawsuit, like is ongoing. And I think that like the obsession with ownership is besides the point, right? It's what are the principles of the genre of what it takes to participate in a culture, right? Are you participating in that culture? Are you contributing to it? Are you acknowledging it? If you are, then I think that more people should be invited to be able to participate if they meet a specific standard, as opposed to acting like you cannot participate at all unless you are part of XYZ demographic. Like that's my general feeling of it, right? So like I'm a New Yorker. I have very particular feelings about just like, hip hop being a New York genre, right? I have very strong feelings about living uptown, having lived in the Bronx, all this, like how I feel about hip hop, right? But like I had to learn to find interesting things about, California rap and rap in the Midwest and whatever, right? Like I could sit here and be like, oh, this is not what I grew up on. This doesn't feel good to me. It's like, no, well, there's something compelling there for somebody, right? So let's figure out what it is. I think the same thing about just the wave of reggaeton, right? Now it's, obviously there's a lot of Colombian artists. I mean, you talk about this extensively who are taking over this space. And I don't think the question is more so that Colombian artists can't contribute. It's that how are you contributing, why, and to what extent, right? Are you contributing to, the mestizaje, the increased mestizaje of the genre, or are you acknowledging this is a Black genre? I want to honor that, and I want to make sure that what I do is in that spirit, right? And I think that's the bigger conversation than the who owns the copyright to a genre.
I want y'all who are listening to know that we didn't practice, we didn't rehearse.
No, not at all.
This is her. Que yo no soy loca. That people really think this way. Because Latin swears that gata's just not happy. And I'm like, that's it. That's it. And I'm like, it's not that it's coming from somewhere. I'm not a researcher. Historian.
No.
But
I've just also been lucky. I grew up, I think the benefit of being in New York, to be quite honest, is, am I bad for cutting you off?
No, go off,
I do think the benefit for growing up in New York is that I was lucky enough in the 90s and 2000s to witness the birth of so many diasporic scenes firsthand. I remember specifically when Looney Tunes Mas Flow dropped, because I was in high school and we were out on 181st Street going to the functions. You know what I mean? I remember what it was like when Daddy Yankee became huge. I remember going to college and thinking that everybody knew dance hall and reggae because I live in New York, and people asking me to translate what Sean Paul said. And I'm like, what do you mean translate? You know what I mean? And one thing about me navigating different spaces is that I really find out that we have these same conversations in so many different iterations in different spaces. Hip hop is worried about the dilution of it going global. Reggaeton is worried about the dilution of it going global and not centering Puerto Rico and Panama and these spaces that have been really foundational to the genre, right? You know who else is having those conversations? Compa and Zouk artists, right? You have huge legends like Aya Nakamura in France who are doing a lot of Compa and Zouk influenced sounds, but they're not, amplifying Haitian and Guadeloupean and Martinican artists, right? Bouillon out of Dominica and, out of Guadeloupe is getting huge, right? Bouillon and Chata, right? But not a lot of people know these sounds, but it's now huge in Europe and in West and Central Africa. Girl, so we're all contending with it.
People, sorry, I have to go. Oh,
it's true.
TikTok. I blame TikTok. The white people are like, oh, what is this sound? This is dope. And I guess this is a cool way to end off, because we could really go forever. But I have two things. This, and I have another question. But girl, so I get on TikTok and they'll hear a sound, and there's this phenomenon. It's funny because it relates right back to what you were saying about reggaeton. In reggaeton, right? Right now there's something called erecate. And erecate is quite literally in reggaeton, just like in dancehall, because it's based in dancehall, there are rhythms. So the Playero mixtapes, the Cuento de la Crita mixtapes, there are rhythms, quite literal sounds that are used over and over that different people rap over. It's a dancehall tradition. It's a Jamaican tradition. So some kid, I don't know if this is Mexico or Brazil, they heard one Playero mixtape, I think it was 40 or 42, and they heard one song, it's oh, that's dope. And then they heard the beat, and then they were they basically carried out the tradition, and that they were this one song is going to be our new rhythm, and we're going to call it Erecate. And so now there's a whole generation of kids calling this music Erecate, and I'm like, bro, that's perreo. It's coming from this mixtape. You discovered nothing with your Christopher Columbus ass, and I don't know what to do with this. But the same, yes, it's happening right now in Europe, and it's so particular, it's so interesting on how it's being co-opted, because it's by the whole DJ movement going on over there. And this remixing movement, and I blame TikTok. I don't know. That's what I have to say. My last question, because God knows I don't want this to end at all. But is that, girl, have you watched Rhythm and Flow?
I watched the first season. I did not watch the second season. Yeah, which God. I think gives you a second of how I think about it.
I need you to watch it. Okay, let's dish. So, what were your thoughts on the first season? Because I thought it was particularly good, not gonna lie, in regards to the curation, in regards to the judges were stout. Cardi has her personality, but even then, her being harsh on hip hop, I appreciated. Her being harsh on what got to pass and not, I appreciated. Even as flirty and fun as she is, it's she still had her, she had her head on her shoulders in regards to her decision making. there were some artists I felt like they could have gone home sooner. And there were some that I felt like stayed to the end. But damn, I really need you to watch the second one, because the second one first. Go funny first.
I'll definitely check out the second season. There's also an equivalent in France. Like they franchised it. So there's a French version, which I have watched as well. But so my short feelings on it is that there's a lot of talent. Like the first season, D Smoke won. I thought D Smoke deserved to win, was a very talented rapper. Comes from like a very musical family or whatever, right? But I think my big issue is that like, I didn't think that like the conversation or like the challenges were rooted into like how hip hop works today, right? Like I think there was a lot of foundation, like the traditional elements of hip hop. Can you freestyle well? Can you like do certain things off the cuff well? Can you battle well? And all those are like good skills. But if you understand how like hip hop works as a genre, like a money making genre, like battle rap is one specific corner of hip hop, right? There are people who are battle rap technicians, like the Loaded Luxes, right? Who cannot make a hit song to save their lives. Which is why you have someone like Cardi in a panel, even if you don't view her as like a hip hop technician, she understands how a hit works, right? You know? And so I think my big criticism was I had hoped that, okay, you've picked the best natural rappers that you hear, you pick the people with the most potential, but you do more work to help them establish careers, right? Because D Smoke already had a musical family. He already had those resources. His brother is literally Sir, right? You know, like, and so it's like, what he's not necessarily looking for affirmation of his talent. He wants the resources to be able to have a viable life as a musician. And I wish there was more of that in these conversations about how to build a viable life as an artist. And I think that's my big criticism over it, right? But the talent out of this world, right? I think that's one thing, you know, that I love to see people who like might have these passions, but like don't like just because being an artist is not your full-time job right now does not mean that's not something you can nurture. And watching people who are like, yeah, I do this right now, but I never stopped rapping. It's always going to be beautiful for me to see.
Mis corazones, I hate to do it to you, pero es necesario. We'll be right back right after these messages. Así que no se muevan. Freeze.
People who are able to continue to pursue their artistry as artists and just still pursue their passion, like even despite all the other limitations, I think it's beautiful to see. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, right? Is like watching all these people who come up and say, yeah, I'm a ESL teacher, I'm a Spanish teacher, right? Like knowing that D Smoke could rap in Spanish was great to see, you know what I'm saying? You know, but like saying like, I never stopped working on my artistry. And I think giving people the opportunity to pursue their dreams is great. I just want people to be able to have those dreams be sustainable as well.
Word up. So I've been in the studio for 6 years, but I'm going to stop hiding. I got like...
now that I know, I'm going to be on you about it. Please, so don't even worry.
Because girl, it's time. Like it was to the point where, you know, and this is publicly known, I had to drop a single last year, recorded a demo because I'm here sharing songs with people who say they want to jump on and then they trying to steal my shit. And it's like, damn. So apparently it's good. And so I just need to go out here and just own my shit. So I'm going to do that. And to add to that, because I have nothing to add to like season 1, but season 2, I think with a lot of what you just said regarding that there were elements of hip hop in the room, we could see it. Is it in the room? I love that question on Twitter. Is the thing in the room
right?
With us? Yeah,
with us exactly.
Hip hop was in the room with us for sure. They brought out Luda, and I screamed. I was like, ah! They brought out Busta, I screamed. And so, you know, I just feel like in combination, there was a lot of balls that were dropped. You got Slim Shady on here. You got, it wasn't giving. And I super agree with you on the sense of like, for example, the whole battle rap thing and the freestyling thing. I consider myself a rapper, cannot freestyle to save my life. Don't put me in the corner. I can catch a
Listen.
You give me a 30th try, I'll get it eventually. I'm black. I can do it. I have rhythm, but like, off rip, you know, that's a specific.
I honestly feel like Jay-Z and Lil Wayne ruined everybody for that, right? You know, like, because Jay told everybody he doesn't write down his raps, and Wayne just goes in the mic and does extemporaneous speech, right? And so everyone thinks, everyone thinks you have to do it. It's like, no, they do that. Do what works for you. If you need a pen and pad, get a pen and a pad. Right. I'd rather you write it down than just go to the booth saying nonsense.
Right. No, yeah. So there was definitely elements of that. Dre TL, who won, first of all, es un amor. Like, I fell in love with him, I did. And I was just completely in shock. I still don't get it. and I'm torn on this too. I so want you to watch this. Watch this and tweet me, please, because
I will.
there was ¿qué te digo? There was moments where people were like, there's for sure evolution on screen, and I appreciated that. I appreciated that because from episode 1 to I don't know if it was 8, it was definitely growth. It was definitely on an upward climb. And there were artists who were already like established in their artistry in the sense of like they knew exactly who they were, exactly what their message was, exactly where they're going, exactly where they've been, and exactly where they don't want to go. Like that was clear as day for certain artists. But for JTL, you could tell like there was an evolution. So there was a part like in falling in love because of the evolution. And it's like at the same time, I think the bigger question of what the show answered was, and I think you touched on it as well, is how do we reward hip hop in the late 2020s versus in the 2010s versus in the 2000s versus in the 90s? It's all very different, you know, like
Right.
does a Lil Kim aesthetic and like rapping of it all, the Nicki aesthetic rapping of it all, even the Cardi aesthetic rapping of it all, does that work today in comparison to when it did when it was their time? I don't know. I really need your take, girl. That's what I'm gonna add, and I'm gonna leave that for those who are listening to chew on that. But for the very last, we went around the world, we really did. But I do want to ask you: is there anything I haven't asked you that you would like to answer? And then in combination with that, what are you mesmerized by right now in culture? There's a lot going on in the world, but what is taking your breath away?
Oof, that's a good question. Mesmerized by, I think if I think about what I'm mesmerized by is the various ways that certain people are choosing to use their art to do different things, right? Or like actually speak truth to power. Like I think about someone like Kehlani, right? You know, who is continuing to put out great R&B, but choosing not to abandon her principles when she is talking about the things that matter to her and sacrificing contracts. So I think about someone like No Name, right, who was called out once about capitalism, and that turned into an entire, book club that is international. I was in Nairobi and met people who were part of No Name's book club, who were fans of hers. Like, to realize that you can really have that impact, and realize that there's some people who are genuinely pursuing that, I think that's what gives me hope, and that's what excites me, right? People who are like still trying to find a way, even though things feel really bleak, because it does feel bleak. Like I think that a lot of us do wake up these days and really do feel like, oh my God, how can we change anything? Everything feels so defeating. The people who have money and resources have fully given up on us, right? They've fully ceded power to authoritarianism. And then you watch people who choose to stand up and you're like, okay, whether they're a celebrity or not, they're making their principles known. And so why can't I do the same thing with mine? I think that's what keeps me enchanted about the power of art.
I'm sorry, I just thought about a tweet I saw yesterday. This girl was walking and she saw this white guy, and she would tell the white guy like, damn, we're in an economic recession. He's like, are we?
Yo!
I was like, oh my, I like threw my laptop.
I was like, you know what?
Like, and everybody was like,
that's not even a lie.
You just gotta let him call you broke like that? And I was like, I literally cried like real tears. And I was like, fuck. I was like, he ate her up. But like, I'm sorry, but you just said it brought me.
Said, not I.
Not we. He said, we? I don't speak French. Girl, I don't know. What you just said, beautiful. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be so silly, but like that just brought me there.
No. I love like,
brought me there because it's like, yo, that Oz, it is bleak for some of us. And I think that's exactly the problem, because there's a lot of us who don't deserve to like really like experience that bleakness. And I guess this is a beautiful note to end this on. I remember, oh God, this election. I remember, when Kamala and Trump, before he won, were going at it. And I was like, okay, can we have honest, if you want me to chime in, I don't think you guys want me to chime in. I don't think you're going to like everything I got to say.
Right.
Because I'm so anti-Trump, of course. And also, can we have a real conversation on how Democrats are dropping the fucking ball? Like, how long are we going to do this? I was drinking the Kool-Aid heavy when it was Biden versus Trump. Heavy. Because I was so tired of like Trump just talking disparate and just being rude and just like all this shit. And I was like, oh my gosh, shut the fuck up. Like, I was just like ready for like that to just go off, to the point of which I went to this president who like basically, yes, has continued the legacy of various structures of violence that has existed throughout the course of America. So it's like, when are we going to have that real conversation? And so I remember, like when it came specifically down to Kamala, Biden has dropped out. There was this conversation regarding, I had wrote in one of my captions, and someone checked me and I appreciated it. I was like, we deserve more. And then someone was like, deserve comes from a place of privilege. And I was like, you know what? You ate me with that. Because what is deserve from being from this imperialist nation? Of course, granted, there's a lot of things I didn't subscribe to. There's a lot
right.
like granted, like I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for my money to be used for that, But granted, regardless of that, there's still this positionality that exists, regardless of anything, that we benefit at the end of the day from a certain level of power because of where we are and the country that we're all like, inhibiting. And that this directly negatively affects other people. What a 360 in this conversation. And so this just pretty much brought me there in regards to like this idea of what the hell we deserve, right? And what the hell, what that even means. And, I guess on the note, I'm looking at you and I'm hearing what you're saying, and this is making me think of that conversation of Black women deserving, Black women rest, Black women being mammied lately in regards to like don't got shit to do with us, and like and also Black women also just resting. So like I guess I don't know. I had all of that to say. I just pretty much rambled pretty much, but yeah, if you have anything to add to that, because that's just like, it's the bigger picture in regards to this whole resilience that you were speaking to, no?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I also think this is the last thing I'll say about that, which is tying it a little bit back to music, which is that like sometimes we have to have a little self-awareness as part of a greater diaspora of like what we contribute to and what we are leading conversations about versus what matters, right? Like you mentioned, like being in an imperial core, sometimes it feels like so much of the work is to get acknowledgement, right? I remember when I first started writing about Francophone music, what I thought was so important was I need to get more French records in Pitchfork reviews, right? I need to get more people to know who these artists are, right? And I think that was happening a lot in the mid-2010s with the Musica Urbana and all that, right? Like we need to get people to understand who these artists are. And then you get that and then things shift, right? Because now you're doing all the work to preserve that status, all the work to preserve the dominance of Afrobeats, the dominance of Reggaeton, right? The dominance of Amapiano, whatever these genres are, right? And like, it doesn't even seem to necessarily align with the needs of the artist, but it aligns with something to us where we get to validate, like, we brought this here, right? We are the evangelists of bringing it here. And I think one of the things I've been trying to think more about is like, maybe that's not the victory. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, America has like one of the largest music markets, but maybe the victory is being able to go there and meet them there and see what their needs are in the industry there, right? And sometimes that can be hard to see because it's like, I want all my major artists to have a night at MSG that I can go see. If for nothing else, that I can just hop on the train right after, right? But I do think that there's value in really understanding what artists need in the global South, what we need as we're trying to transition through like such a hostile time, and like working towards honoring that as opposed to like whatever version of success we think exists.
And on that note, beautifully said. I got no more things to add, my love. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Truly. Mi gente, ya ustedes saben, this is Gata, Reggaeton Con La Gata. Until next week, ciao. That was a lot of yapping from me. I'm dying to hear from one of you. Mi gente, you know what time it is. It's time for Rapidito. Let's get right into it. So, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, including a genocide in Palestine. What is your take on that? What do you have to add or say about that?
I mean, I think it's really devastating and unfortunate that not more people are speaking about it or feel that they can't say anything because there's financial ties that they're being impacted. So I think reggaeton artists in general, or even Latino music, needs to like go back to its roots of just like speaking of the resistance and speaking against the existing systems, and safety Palestine in general. Reggaeton was a music of the resistance, it's music of the people. Favela funk, similar examples. These music have like evolved to become like now mainstream, and it's unfortunate that you don't hear about coming back to its roots and just saying what's the reality, which is we should be speaking about the injustice in Palestine.
Thank you for being Rapidito.
Yeah.
Thank you. Your name and where are you from? Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here, Rapidito. You ready to answer some questions on reggaeton?
Let's do it.
Okay. So dime, what was your intro to reggaeton?
Probably Mundos. Reggaeton video. It was an album called The Majestic. It had Evie Queen in it. It had Triple Crown. I had Los Guanabanas. Yeah, that was my intro to reggaeton.
Word up. And who would you say is like your Mount Rushmore of reggaeton?
I would say Joe Calderon, Evie Queen, Daddy Yankee, Bad Bunny, and I'm gonna throw a DJ in there, so I'm gonna probably say DJ Blast.
Why? Why all of these selections?
I think DJ Blast like put a lot of artists together in an album, San Miguel, and created a lot of collaborations with different like up and coming artists, and that created the exposure. Daddy Yankee in itself, he basically brought the genre like to U.S. popularity at some point in the 2000s. Joe Calderon was like a breath of fresh air, just like Afro Latino who basically does like rap and reggaeton. Who was gonna say Daddy? Bad Bunny, took it to another level most recently and just like made reggaeton what it is at this point, essentially worldwide. And Evie Queen, she basically made the movement for women in reggaeton. Starting in the noise, and she made her hair there. So.
Word up, thank you. And okay, so Dime, what is your hot take of reggaeton?
My hot take of reggaeton is not everyone needs to have an album. Like some artists are really good at doing singles and collaboration albums, or even or just in general being collabs. I don't think everyone needs to have a reggaeton album.
And what was your intro to like? How did you get hip to like reggaeton as a genre? Like, how did you get hip to like drops and shit? How long have you been listening to it? Like, what's your story with reggaeton?
I feel like my exposure to reggaeton originally was probably DJ Blast, DJ Nelson, Mas Flow, Reggaeton Sex, Sir Speedy. Like hearing it at like quinceañeras and like seeing like my older siblings and cousins listening to it, it exposed me to it and makes me want to like find the music. Even like things like the internet itself, downloading music, migente.com. That just like it created a different level of exposure, I think, for me. And yeah, it took off from there.
Word up. Mis corazones, you know what time it is. It's time for Las Flores. Reggaeton Con La Gata is an iHeartMedia production, co-executive produced by Nuria Net of Shake It Easy Media. Te Quiero, produced by Grace Gonzalez. Te Quiero, edited by Joaquin Kotler. Te Quiero. Shout out to my production assistants, Naomi Acevedo and Kayla Eccleston. And shout out to Happy Vibes con la musiquita. I'm your host, La Gata. See you right here next week on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen. Nos vemos.